I am very excited actually to be interviewing our next guest. I was mesmerized by his performance in Ernest Shackleton. Um, his performance of a velociraptor in Triassic Park was also pretty fabulous. We're talking Wade McCollum. Wade, how are you? I am so excited. You are such a brilliant performer.
Oh, thank you, Susanna. That's so nice. I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Yeah, you kind of did Ernest Shackleton and then disappeared.
Well, I went to London.
Oh, did the show go to London?
No, well, Shackleton might go to London, but it happened in Key West, played in the West End, and it happened pretty soon after Shackleton. In fact, Jill Santoriello came to see Ernest Shackleton Loves Me when we were doing it at Second Stage, and
Right.
they were about to do a workshop of It Happened in Key West, and she said, "That's our guy. Let's ask him if he'll do It Happened in Key West." So that's sort of how I came upon this job.
Oh, I didn't realize it happened in Key West happened that long ago.
Yeah, so we did a workshop in Pennsylvania, and then took the show
Fulton.
to London. Yeah, at the Fulton, and then we went to London pretty soon thereafter.
Now, why did it go to London? Was it because Jill had so many connections with Tale of Two City being in
That
London?
Yeah, that was part of it, but a lot of shows, pre-New York, pre sort of, because it's the only other commercial theater space in the world. I think it's a common pathway that shows go to London and then come to New York.
I know because I was shocked that it went from Fulton. When I was doing my research, I was shocked that it went from Fulton to London ASAP. And I was like, wait, wow, they had to have connections.
Yeah. And actually, Jeremiah, who is one of the writers and lead producer on the show, he has a lot of connections in London. He did Carousel in the West End, I think,
Okay.
some years ago, and got a lot. He was brilliant in it, and so I think he leveraged some of those relationships with producers, and it was a fantastic place to do the show.
Now the show is being done in a concept album, correct?
Yeah, so we did a live cast recording in the West End, and so that just got released. And let me tell you, I had a little bit of nervousness around that because you do one show and they record it, and hopefully it was a good show that night. Recorded forever, but man, I listened to it and they've done such an amazing job of mixing the album live and making it sound really, really good. So I'm happy with it.
Tell us a little bit about this show because it's quirky.
It's one of the quirkiest shows I've ever been a part of, and that's saying a lot because I've done some weird stuff.
I like weird stuff. That's true. You have done weird stuff, and I love what you do.
Yeah, like you said in the introduction, I did play the mother velociraptor in Triassic Park, which its 10-year anniversary is right now, actually, for Triassic Park.
Did they ever make an album out of Triassic?
Yeah, that's on Broadway Records as well. So Ernest Shackleton, Triassic Park, and now It Happened in Key West are all original cast albums that I'm on that are Broadway Records releases. Yay, thank you, Broadway Records.
Yay, Van Diem, we love him.
Yeah, yeah.
How would you describe this show?
Well, I mean, my impulse is to say it's punk rock, but that gives people the wrong impression. It's actually this golden era, sweeping, kind of romantic Broadway score. Jill Santoriello's music is rich, and it sounds like it could have been plucked out of the 1940s golden era Broadway sound. It's absolutely gorgeous. And what I mean by punk rock is that it's sort of the mashup of that heart and tonality and innocence and romantic sweeping gestures of that type of music matched with the story that's really exploring death and the idea of soulmates and how far is too far in terms of keeping a promise. So it's sort of the true story and the music put together create this really dynamic combination. It's sort of a paradox. But that said, it's also one of the most romantic, beautiful shows I've ever been a part of, and the love is so pure, and the music is so beautiful. I don't know if you've heard that Undying Love.
I did. I actually went, while we had time, I went and listened.
Yeah, that song ends Act One, and it's a marriage in a graveyard, to a ghost, surrounded by the ghosts of our ancestors. So it is a true story. Carl Tanzler lived back in the 30s in Key West, and he was born in Germany in the late 1800s, and he had a dream of his soulmate. And his grandmother, who was psychic, supposedly, told him, "That's your soulmate. You have to go find her. It's your duty to find your soulmate." And I believe Carl was on the neurodiversity spectrum. And so he became very fixated and very passionate about finding this soulmate. So he searched for her for 40 years. He traveled the whole world. Supposedly, he got 12 degrees in philosophy and mathematics and all sorts of different fields. And so he was a super brainiac, but his main goal was to find his soulmate. So around 1932, I think, I might be a little bit off with years, he ended up in Key West, Florida, of all places. And the woman from his dream walked through the door of the hospital that he was working in. And there were some challenges. She was married. She was much younger than him because he'd been searching for 40 years at this point. And most sadly, she was dying of tuberculosis. So some major obstacles to having met your soulmate. And so the question became, now what?
Does love surpass death?
Exactly. So because tuberculosis was extremely contagious, obviously, nobody would really come near her. And he was a doctor. He had studied medicine, and he had some sort of experimental therapy, sort of like Nikola Tesla. He was into electricity, and maybe electric currents could, like, kill the virus and all these sorts of, at the time, pretty zany ideas. And he tried out all these experimental therapies on her, and she actually lived for quite a long time, much longer than other people who'd been diagnosed. And some people attribute it to his experimental therapies. Some people attribute it to the fact that they became really good friends. And he gave her friendship and companionship at a time when nobody would come near her. And though she was married, it was completely, just a friendship. They became very, very close. And she shared his passion for aviation and science. And being a small town girl in 1930 in Key West, Florida, he was, this very worldly gentleman who traveled all over the world. And so I think her curiosity for the world and for life, he kept her engaged and interested and alive. Eventually, the family thought, this is weird. They're spending too much time together. What will the neighbors think? And so they hid Elena away from Carl. They took her to, I don't know, a cousin's house or something. And their intentions were good. They were trying to save her reputation, so forth and so on. But she died very quickly after she was taken away from the therapies and also perhaps their friendship.
Wow. It's a shame the med beds weren't released then.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of Nikola Tesla and the
Yes.
things that he created and the things that have been kept from us.
Hello, exactly. I know.
Have been kept from us, and I want them.
I know all that free energy technology. Come on.
He's created these things called med beds that literally can heal you in 3 minutes.
See?
Everything, and they exist, but most people don't want to. They're either afraid to believe it or don't want to believe it.
Yeah, some of it sounds so.
I'm in the conspiracy theorist land of where I want to talk a little bit about you, because seriously, your performances are so layered and so quirky, yet so tangibly real. Where, after doing It Happened in Key West, what did you do? Where did you go?
Oh my gosh, I'm so bad with sort of
chronological
time. Time and I have a tenuous relationship, but let's see. I left London and we got back to the States, and London was such an incredible experience. I think I was very quickly put into Magic Mike, which was heading to Broadway.
Okay.
I was in a principal contract there. I was sort of a dream job for me because the team, Trip Coleman was directing, Camille A. Brown was choreographing. I was like sort of in a heavenly moment of sort of pop art meets really great theater craftsman people. And that, as we all know, sort of fizzled out for unknown reasons. I think there
Yeah.
was
I
some,
know one of the producers on this, and this was their pet project, and it's breaking their heart.
I
Believe me, he
know.
still wants to get it up. So,
I mean, to me, I thought it was a great piece. It had a lot of potential, and we were working on it in the middle of rehearsal, and they called us in and said, "We've canceled the Boston run, which was sold out, and we're gonna just
yeah,
shelve it."
I don't know what happened. Bruce didn't tell me, but I do know that he and his partner definitely want this show to still go on.
Yeah, I mean, it's a logical thing to bring to the Broadway stage. I think it would be an amazing piece. So I hope it does have a life. Nonetheless, I was sort of, in a tenuous situation without the work I'd sort of planned on. So I had been in callbacks for the Lincoln Center My Fair Lady when
Oh,
I actually got asked to go to the West End with It Happened in Key West. So when I lost out on Magic Mike, luckily the tour for My Fair Lady was going out. And so I very quickly sort of dovetailed into that tour, and that was amazing. I did that up until the pandemic. Um, and then I got accepted into an Ivy League neuroscience program through the
really?
University of Pennsylvania. And I've been sort of nurturing my science brain. I really, really love science, and I didn't graduate high school. I went to an acting conservatory, so I've sort of been waiting for a good excuse to kind of return to school and nurture my science brain. So that's been
Better
really,
time.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I had lots of time, and I've been taking classes like behavioral neurobiology and autonomic pharmacology and music and neuroscience. I co-founded a company that's a medical music company. We make anxiolytic music playlists out of Cornell Tech.
Definitely send this to me. I'll write about this. This is cool.
Yeah, it's really fun. I'm having a great time. And then after the pandemic, I returned to the tour of My Fair Lady, but sort of as their emergency Henry Higgins cover. I kind of cover all the principal male roles in My Fair Lady, which has been amazing. I could do a one-person version of My Fair Lady, which I'm
Oh,
thinking
wow.
might be not a bad idea.
Actually, that might not be a bad idea.
Could be
Um,
fun.
this is one of my favorite questions to ask. If you had to choose a song or cycle of songs to describe who you are, what would they be?
Hmm. Well, I'm really into Bach fugues right now. I'm really into sort of these tangled hierarchies and strange loops that exist in the fugue world,
Mhm.
and how sort of recursive function can work in these classical pieces, and how well designed they are sort of as puzzle pieces. Um, so from lots of angles, I'm sort of fixated on the fugues right now. I don't know if it would, I think it might describe consciousness, and therefore it might sort of describe me, since I am a conscious being. If I had to sort of like identify with personality, you know, the Out of Time album by REM,
Oh, yeah.
I just love that album. It was something I listened to when I was like 13, 14. So it has sort of, oh, and also the Indigo Girls Rites of
Oh,
Passage.
I love that album. Love.
Yeah.
Let me guess. Are you also into Fibonacci?
I love Fibonacci. Yes, absolutely. In fact, we use a lot of that math in the medical music company with the golden ratio and all of that. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been into this for a very long time. Music and time and what is it really?
Amazing. Amazing.
So
Yeah.
I never thought I'd be having this conversation with somebody online, but yeah, I'm
Oh,
very much into this. Fractals.
yes, I love fractals. And yeah, yeah. Fractals and recursive function and music and math and
It's all
the
the
way
same
it
thing.
all, it's all the same thing and it all fits together so elegantly, which is why it's been so beautiful to have sort of this parenthetical moment to kind of dive deep into the brain and more, quantitative analysis of how it all fits together and how we can help people. Like, I really want to be of service. And, being an actor, that's all I've wanted to do is be of service. And now it feels like I have a little bit more tools in my tool belt. I just finished a one-person show
Oh,
here in
what?
Portland, Oregon. Um,
About
it's
what?
called, it's called Mr. Madam. It's another historical character, Kenneth slash Kate Marlowe, who was a drag artist in the 40s, late 30s, early 40s in Chicago for the mob. And she had the most extraordinary and adventurous and bizarre life. She inspired Armistead Maupin, Tales of the City, and a Madrigal character.
Oh, wow.
Uh, she spent lots of time in brothels in Winnemucca and New Orleans. And she just lived this sort of pioneering queer trans life
And they
way
didn't,
before.
and they didn't beat the crap out of her?
Well, she went through it. She definitely went through some trauma, but her resilience, I mean, that's the thing about this, it's basically a cradle to grave kind of one person show. And I embody about 35 different characters throughout the course of her life. And
Wow.
she didn't transition until she was in her 50s. And it was in the early 1970s that she transitioned. So there was a lot of music, like lots of in and out of various gender expressions. It was a super interesting show, and it was a world premiere. So we're hoping to kind of take that forward. It looks like we'll have an off-Broadway run in September of next year.
Sounds like a Broadway show or off Broadway show version of The Danish Girl.
Yes, yeah, there are some similarities. Yeah, exactly. It's that sort of that era and sort of, this very progressive conversation. Though, gender variant people have been around obviously since the beginning of humanity. So it's not a new conversation.
It's not a new conversation. For some reason, everyone thinks it's this brand new thing. It's not, it's a continuum.
Yeah.
It amazes me how people think because for some reason we look at the little tiny speck instead of everything that's there. And there's
Mm,
so much more in everything that's there. So,
so
yeah,
true.
yeah, I'm a big component of this one. So, when
Mm.
can we see it happened in Key West? What's its progress? The album's coming out. Is there a production coming out with it?
Yeah, there are whispers of a production in the fall. I'm not sure where that stands quite yet, but the album just got released last week. And like I said, it's absolutely beautiful and it's available on all the various platforms in which music is delivered. And it's definitely worth a listen. There's some gems in there. And it was fun for me to re-listen to the album and sort of visit all of those people. That cast was so special and they're a world away. They're all the way across the ocean. So I felt like I was,
You made
among,
friends.
yes, I made a lot of really good friends and it was great to hear their voices and remember singing in harmony with them. It was really
Mm.
sweet.
Well, I look forward to listening to this album, and I'm so grateful to have talked to you.
Oh, ditto.
I look forward to whatever comes next with you.
Thank you. You as well.